So I am Christ and disciple, as you guys know, and I wanted to talk about some very interesting things about Superman and Jesus Christ, Zack Snyder's Superman and Jesus Christ, that some of us haven't really covered. Um, and what makes I think what makes this particular version of Superman so much like Jesus. And I think a lot of people don't like that, but it's very realistic. So, let's just first of all put this into perspective, okay, guys? Let's say that you, right, were to find out that not only are there aliens here, but they're much more powerful than we are, and to a certain extent are tremendously influencing the way the world works. What would be your immediate reaction to knowing that? Would you be accepting, inviting, willing to put these aliens on a pedestal and all of a sudden you're happy that they're in control of the world and you feel safe? Right. No. Okay? So, this is human tendency. Human tendency is to want to be in a pattern of something that works. You want to be in a pattern of something that makes you feel comfortable with who you are. Okay? So, once you start to disrupt a system, any system, there's going to be immediate pushback on that. Like right now, David Zaslav is interrupting a system. Certain people got their money from certain scoops. Certain people had certain relationships and friendships, and that has all been broken. And David Zaslav was just coming in there and, chopping down walls and breaking down, beams and stuff and rebuilding really rapidly. And that's ruffling a lot of feathers. And this is just the way our human nature is. One of the things that Zack Snyder captured to me best in his movies was, yeah, they're superhero movies, but really it could have been any kind of movie. It could have been a drama. It could have been an action movie. It could have been any kind of movie because his movies are grounded in reality. It's grounded in how we behave. It's grounded in how we react to things. So, first of all, very, very common similarity between Superman and Jesus Christ was that Jesus Christ was a figure of controversy. One of the biggest figures in all of humans' history, because to this day, that's a name that almost anybody in any culture or religion knows. The most popular symbols in pop culture and in culture and period is Jesus Christ and Superman. Superman comes secondary to Jesus Christ. And that's because they have a lot of commonalities between them. And one of them is Superman was a very, very controversial figure. Okay? How Zack Snyder painted him. And especially in BVS. He was controversial in Man of Steel as well. But in BVS particularly, he was very controversial. And similarly, Jesus Christ, being a Jewish born guy, was very controversial amongst the Jewish community. They didn't know if to accept him or to reject him. The leadership rejected him and sentenced him to death. The common folk were influenced by the leadership, so whatever the leadership says, most of the common folk will go with. But there were a set of devout people. So ultimately, in the end, Jesus was executed, was crucified. And the typical symbol of his crucifixion has his hands outstretched. His both hands outstretched out wide like this, and him on a cross. He's nailed to a cross. Okay, and they pierced his side, and blood and sweat came out. They pierced his side after he died. Now this is very important to understand because a lot of the imagery and iconography in Zack Snyder's version of Superman points to that, points to the death and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. In fact, Superman himself, his side was also pierced, as you know, by Doomsday. And if you do pay attention, when Doomsday pulls out the his growth, his spur from Superman's chest, you will see Superman's hands are outstretched, and Superman cries out, right? And the cry is heard all over the world, and it awakes the mother boxes, okay? But at the same time that Superman is impaled, I want you guys to understand the significance of this. He is also impaled Doomsday. In other words, the day of doom has been inflicted with a grievous wound that kills it. In other words, Jesus killed death on the cross at the same time that he was dying. This is the Shakespearean King Arthur, double-bladed sword. They say Jesus is a double-bladed sword, and Zack Snyder loves King Arthur. The story of uh, the shit, I forgot what the name of it is, but Excalibur. He loves Excalibur, right? And there's a reason he loves Excalibur, because Excalibur gives you what is called the double-bladed effect, or the double-bladed sword. Not only are you words are such that they're a two-way street. So when you inflict damage on someone else, you're also inflicting damage upon yourself. This is the understanding behind it. And if you go deeper into what Zack Snyder was doing, you realize why when Superman impaled Doomsday, it was very much necessary that Doomsday impaled Superman. Uh, because in order for Superman to inflict the death blow on death itself, he himself had to die. In other words, for Jesus to put to death, he had to die to death, rise back up again to conquer death. So it's that imagery, it's very, very closely parallel imagery Zack Snyder's doing with Jesus Christ and Superman, all the way through the Superman story. Even the resurrection of Superman is in many, many, many different ways similar to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and I'll explain to you what I mean. So first of all, though, I want you to understand just how closely paralleled this is, and this is why is for me it's fun to speak the gospel through pop culture, pop mythos, because the parallels are there for you to see. Jesus Christ actually existed. There's literally documentation showing his actual existence. Josephus was one of the people who gave accounts of him, as well as some Greek scholars gave some accounts of him in his time. And he was a controversial figure by both people describing him, though he did a lot of good. And that is very much symptomatic of Superman. And the rejection of Superman by, should I say, the rejection of Superman by some in power, whereas also the coming man would reflect that, and also the acceptance of Superman by some is what made him controversial. Um, Very similar to Jesus Christ's story. Um, just to give you guys even a little bit more insight into how detailed Zack Snyder can be, down to the last detail of how uh, Ben Affleck's Batman uh, carried Superman off from the top shelf where he was with Doomsday down to Wonder Woman. That is literally a sort of an imagery that is actually in the death of the Christ when he's being taken down from the cross, and Joseph of Arimathea is at the base. Mary Magdalene is there. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is holding him, and John, the apostle, is also carrying him down. It's a very interesting, intriguing iconography that Zach just pulled straight from, uh, you know, the literal the painting that depicted that. So I just thought that was beautiful. Um, and that's how specific he was. Now, if you look in the background, there was three crosses. Three crosses. Now, everybody knows a cross is a crossing over. It's a cross. There's a reason why we talk about the cross and the cross and the cross. And besides it being that it's, Jesus was stretched out on the cross, which was very interesting because it's basically he was forced to embrace the world And remember, he also cried out. So Superman made a cry, a death cry, as Doomsday withdrew his impalement from Superman, and Doomsday himself was dying. Jesus said, Eli, Eli, sabachthani," or Eli, Eli, sabachthani. I prefer to say Eli, Eli, which is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Right? And if you do remember, after he said that, there was a tremendous earthquake, and um, a number of the dead were awakened at that point in time. So graves burst open, and dead people came up, and they started walking around like normal. Okay, and if you think about it, what awakened the mother boxes in the Superman saga was when Superman died. One of the mother boxes awakened, and it called to the dark realm, and Steppenwolf came. Okay, so you have to understand it that there's like tremendous amounts of parallels between the Jesus story and the Superman story, which is why Superman's really perfect example is a perfect story, especially how Zach has put it in Zack Snyder's Justice League. He's just perfect to describe Jesus Christ's story, because what you have to understand about mythos, whether you think the Jesus Christ story is a mythos or not, whether you believe that Superman story is a mythos or not, is there's always a tremendous layer of truth, particularly truth pertaining to humanity in these mythos. This is why they're mythos. The reason people love Superman is because of the qualities that he possesses. And that's what Zack Snyder was able to nail down. And not only nail down, he was able to isolate it in a very particular way that made Superman very appealing to the average person. What Zack Snyder showed us is that because you have enhanced abilities, because you approach things differently, because you want to help other people, it doesn't mean that the world's all going to be rosy and gay and people are going to accept you for that. If you conduct yourself different to how other people conduct themselves, and you start to influence other people, it's going to affect the system. And the system is going to begin to change. And the people who benefit from that system are not going to like you for it. Lex Luthor did not like Superman because Superman went against every single thing that the system taught him you're not supposed to do. So Lex Luthor hated Superman, but mainly because Lex Luthor felt he knew more than Superman. He was much more knowledgeable than Superman, but he didn't have the power that Superman had. He said it quite cryptically. He said, knowledge, the greatest uh, grief of those with great knowledge is that they have great knowledge, but they don't have power. In other words, Lex Luthor knew more than Superman about a lot of stuff, was able to manipulate the system, and he was just pissed that no matter how much he knew, he would never be more powerful than Superman. Because he thought he had the world in his hands. He thought, I got this game. And then Superman came in and messed up the game for him. All right? So that's why Lex Luthor hates Superman. And he hates Superman. He does not like Superman. Okay? And there's a lot to this because Lex Luthor is the epitome of the devil. The devil knows a lot more than we, children of God, but because we've tapped into God, there's so much to this Superman story. And let's start with Superman's dad, Jor-El, who's no longer, just the consciousness of Jor-El is there. And Jor-El said something that's very true. He said that, uh, you know, they'll they'll race behind you, they'll stumble, they'll fall, but they will join you in the sun, right? Um, Basically, that is not quite the story with us, but it's sort of the same for a Christian brother or sister. And let me explain to you what I mean. And again, I do not see someone as Christian based on what you profess with your mouth, what you say. It's really what you do. It's really, that's the only way I'm going to know if you're a Christian or not. And it doesn't matter what you call yourself. You can call yourself a Muslim, you can call yourself whatever. You can call yourself a Hindu, you can call yourself a Buddhist. It doesn't matter to me. What I want to know is how do you behave? How do you conduct yourself? Because that's the thing that ultimately, in the end, is going to decide everything. And so I may think of you in my terms as a Christian. I may not even call you a Christian. I might call you a follower of the way. I might call you something else. But ultimately, in the end, it's not the label. And that's what a lot of people get caught up with. I don't care if you call me a Christian or you don't call me a Christian. I don't care really, because that's not what is going to show that I'm a genuine person or I'm a good person. So the label doesn't mean anything. I profess to be a Christian. That doesn't mean I do everything like a Christian does, even. You know. But here's the thing. People were influenced by Superman. By Superman coming out, living his life, um, being an example, whether he was controversial or not. After he left, people realized how necessary he was. Okay, kind of like the 12 disciples realized how important he was. They forgot he was supposed to come back. So here's the important part. On Superman's return, he met other people like himself. Okay? Because he left, it had a tremendous influence on Batman. And because of Batman recruited a whole league. And this league is growing. That's the gospel. Let me explain. When Jesus died, okay, he left. It was about 12 apostles. There was Mary and so on. They were in a room, open and dope and whatever. But they assembled together as they usually did. When he came back and then left them again, there was the day of Pentecost, in which they spread even more and they started expanding. And we had these followers of the way. Now, what you have to understand is, and this is going to be hard for some people to understand, because even people in Christendom, I believe, don't get it. But it's okay. I wish, because some things are written in Old English. Some things are written or translated from the Greek or the Coptic, into Latin and then into Old English. So if you read in King James Version, for example, and Jesus says, I will not leave you comfortless. I will come to you. When Jesus says that to them and he says, I will send a comforter to you, which is the Holy Spirit. Y'all have to understand that's Old English. Okay? He actually spoke directly to them, and then he spoke in a sort of manner that's a sort of, because he has to try and explain something that's not easy to explain, he says it in this way. He says it twice. So he says it the first way. He says, I will not leave you comfortless. I'll come to you. Right? Then he turns around and he says, I will send you another comforter. Right? Who's the Holy Spirit, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let me explain to you guys what that is. Okay? For people, let me speak to it in everyday terms. I'm not going to use any specific churchy terms or anything like that. All right, so God is not a man. You got to understand that concept. You have to understand that. We keep on thinking that he's a man, or he's a he or she or whatever. God's not a man. Okay, best way to describe God, even though it's not the proper description, but the best way to describe God is in terms of energy. Okay, that's the best way people are able to explain it. But God is not energy. It's beyond that. But the cool thing about it is energy is with everything that we can think of in the universe has energy, right? And energy controls everything, right? So that's a better way to sort of start to get the idea of what God is. Okay? Now, that's where Jesus came from. Jesus was the embodiment of God, just like how Kal-El was the embodiment of hope. See, Kal-El's not God. Hope is. I wonder if you kind of understand the quality. Okay? Okay. So for you guys to kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to say, so it'll make more sense to you, because a lot of people, in religious circles speak with only one kind of language, and they overcomplicate something that's very simple. Okay? So the Holy Spirit, what everybody calls the Holy Spirit, is a real thing. It's concrete. It's not necessarily a singularity, because we keep on thinking that we have to look at something. We have to focus on something. This is the way how the human mind works. But with God, you don't focus on one thing particularly. That's why he said, don't make any graven images unto anything in the likeness of the earth below or the heavens above or whatever. Because that's focusing on a singularity. It's focusing on something. right? God's beyond that. Okay, let me give you an example. If I focus on love, for example, that's an attribute, that's a quality. Okay, I'm not really focusing on a particular thing. Like there's not, I don't know. I can't really fully define what love is. I can't fully define. I can't isolate it and then recreate it and then duplicate it. I can't really do that. It's a quality. It's invisible. You see what I'm saying? Now, God is love, right? But what does that mean? Well, everything you can see, everything that you can touch, everything you can feel, everything that exists is held up by God. Period. Okay? So Jesus, who came to earth in the form of a man, was an angel, right? He was an angel of God. Because an angel is a messenger or a message. So because God took on a form, okay? Because he took on a form, just like how uh, all of Krypton was the codex. But the codex, the entire codex, took on a form by being inside of Kal-El. Kal-El was the fullness of Krypton bodily. This is a really good way of explaining it. And what's so cool about that was Zack Snyder sort of crystallized what Jesus was on earth. The fullness of the Godhead bodily. And when we say Godhead, what do we really mean by that? Because people will think it means Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is not what it means. It means the fullness of power bodily. Jesus had full access to what God could do. Whatever God could do, Jesus could do too. Now, you have to understand, I want you to understand as a human being watching this video, whoever you may be, you don't know what section of life you come from or whatever. And this is a very empowering statement, what I'm about to say. Everything that God can do, Jesus could do. So God can create, Jesus could create. God could fix things, heal things, stop time, whatever, Jesus could do it. God could touch hearts, minds, Jesus could do it. God could forgive, Jesus could do it. Everything, when it comes to the power of choice, capable that Kryptonians could do, Kal-El could do. He had the fullness of Krypton in him because he had the entire codex inside of him. So he could be whatever he wanted to be because he had the power to do that. First of all, we are made in the image and likeness of God. What does that even mean? Because that's just guptiga. That means nothing. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean we resemble God. It doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with our appearance whatsoever. Because guess what? I'm sure the animals have their own story, and they're in the image and likeness of God as well. So that's not it. What it's speaking to is that we're alive and we abide by certain attributes, which are God attributes. First of all, anybody listening to me here, you are capable of doing anything that you consistently set your mind to do. This is very, very true. You stay consistent and persistent with it, and you will bring it to reality. Because we are built in the image and likeness of God. That's the first point. Now the second point, because we live in a world where there's good and there's evil, that could be something that you may choose to do that's evil, or you may choose to do that's good. Okay, fine. Now, with respect to Kal-El, if you look at Kal-El in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he was born again. Okay, he had a rebirth because he was dead, He was brought back to life. Okay. Jesus was dead. He was brought back to life as well. But even Jesus' first birth was different to the first birth of all of us in this world. So his first birth, he had the fullness of God in him, in human flesh. And for us, our second birth, those who are born again, our second birth, we have the fullness of God in us because Jesus passes it on to us. The same thing that he had in him. Now you would say, but don't we have the fullness of God the first time because God breathed the breath of life into us? Yes. Not really, because here's what happened. Because the first man that ever existed, or at least documented first man, went and disobeyed God on a certain issue. We inherited the propensity to be destructive. I mean, and so we have dormant within us a lot of the godlike traits that we should be exercising. But by being born again, those are all activated. All of them. Because now the same thing that was in Jesus Christ is now in us. It's been passed on. So that's the way how that goes. But all living human beings are capable of anything that they can envision in their minds. They're capable of accomplishing those things. All human beings. All of them. The question is, what it is. What is it that you envision in your mind? Is it good or is it for evil? That's always the question. And if you're born again, it's always going to be a drive and a direction for good, which leads us to Superman. Superman's aspiration was to inspire humanity to be a force for good. This is what Jarrell told, which started to begin. It was Batman. He was first inspired to be a force for good, and he became hopeful. It trickled on to Wonder Woman. It's not a human, but nonetheless. And then Barry Allen jumped on the board immediately. And then Aquaman, who's not really a human, but half human, and Cyborg. And so all of them were inspired through the death of Superman to be forces for good. The same spirit, hopefulness, the God complex, the God spirit, which is hopefulness, was passed on to Batman, and then on to Wonder Woman, then on to Flash, and then on to, and so on and so on and so on. And it multiplied. Okay? Which is the same thing when Jesus died and then he rose again. He passed on that same sort of spirit to us. Spirit of hopefulness. A spirit of love. A spirit of generosity, and so on and so on and so on. These are called the fruits of the Spirit. But spirit just simply means an attitude, a mindset for good, not for evil. So you can choose to do good or evil because, as the story goes, we can call it the myth, we can call it whatever you want to call it. Both Adam and Eve ate of the tree. The tree. The tree spreads its arms as well and embraces of good and evil. So they both learned what good is, and then they learned also what evil is. Before that, they only knew what good was. And God always used to say, and it was good. So they didn't know anything else. But they became aware of what evil was. And because of that, we also know what evil is. You understand? So that's how it comes to be. There's good in this world, and obviously there's evil in this world. Some people, they class it differently. They call it by different names. But Evil is easy. It's easy to know what evil is. Evil is something where it's destructive to the well-being of you as a human being or this planet, etc. Like, for example, polluting the planet is an evil thing. That's evil. You're polluting the seas. You're killing the fish. You're killing this. You're killing that. That's evil. Okay? Very simple. All right? Selfish attitude where you're exploiting poorer people, knowing that their last dime is what they're giving you, but yet you're trying to extract more from them, extort them, etc. That's evil. Lying to people for your own personal benefit and gain is evil, and so on, and so on, and so on. However, there's good in this world as well. Taking care of your body, good. Being someone who is about their word. If you give someone a word, you keep your word, good. Loyalty to people that do good things, good. So there's good and there's evil in this world. And we, as members of Restore the Snyderverse, realized the evil that certain executives were doing to actors and creatives inside of Warner Brothers. And we felt it was wrong. And so we stood up for good, like the Justice League, like the 12 apostles, like Jesus. Jesus threw out the money changers and their monies were extorting people inside of the temple, making money off of selling sacrifices in the temple. And he came in and he overturned those things, man. And he chased them out the temple. He said, this is a house of prayer. You made it a den of thieves. They didn't like him for that. And so don't expect people to like you, just like how they didn't like Superman. Don't expect yourself not to be controversial. This is why we in the Snyder Cut movement have been considered toxic bots. You see the media. You see what the media paints about us. We've been called what we've been called murderverse people. We've been called Snyder cultists. We've been called all kinds of crazy names. Crazy names because we tell the truth. And if we're arguing with you, we argue off of a truth base, a fact base. And we're standing up for the right thing. We're standing up for good. Just like how the movie said. And that's the way Jesus was. That's the way the apostles were. And if you're a Christian who's been born again, that's the way how you are. You're not going to ignore evil doing. Then you're part of it. You have to stand up for what is good. And you have to let people know when they're doing something that's wrong because you want them to do what's good, one. And two, you want them to stop doing what's wrong. And let them know that God is always seeing you. Because God's everywhere. He's always in everything. He's everywhere. You can't get away with it. And yet, when you have a conscience like that, I think it helps out. You know, I was listening to Zach say, be kind all the time. These guys always say, be kind, be kind. And it's a really important thing for us to do as, you know, as people in this community, in the social media community. Because people are very, very harsh, very, very cruel. Just because I'm right doesn't mean I have to be, you know, a mean person. So I hope that this video will help bring some parallels between Jesus Christ and Zack Snyder's Superman, which I really truly appreciate. I appreciate Zack Snyder. I appreciate what he brings to the table. And I thought I would share that with you guys today. I have some problems with my phone right now, but I'm going to get that sorted. But I thought I would stream this with you guys. Well, I hope you guys have a good one. Keep safe, keep well. And I will post up some pictures in the community section showing the similarities between Jesus Christ and Superman iconography. So, hope you guys enjoy it. Have a good one.